'n Groot raaisel in die Suid-Afrikaanse politiek is waarom oppositiepartye nie groter munt kan slaan uit die ANC se mislukkings nie. Navorsing dui daarop dat die meeste kiesers wat al krisis vir oppositiepartye trek, wil hê dat hulle moet saamwerk. Twee partye wat dit klaarblyklik nie kan regkry nie is Action SA en die DA. Action SA het onlangs uit die veelparty koalisie in Ekurhuleni onttrek, maar sal steeds saam met die DA stem om die ANC teen te staan. Die blou en die groen party is albei in die ateljee om die gesprek of eerder die debat verder te voer. Ek verwelkom nou die Gautengse-leier van Action SA, Bongani Baloyi, en die DA se nasionale woordvoerder, Cilliers Brink. Bongani, so I want to start with you. You were previously in the DA. Why do you think that some South Africans vote for the DA?
Well, the DA is an institution which has lots of history and has also entrenched itself in the lives of South Africans, and also historically playing a particular role in fighting corruption, providing good governance. But the environment is much more complex than that, and they're looking for other solutions. So I really think, as an institution and a very important player in the democratic space of South Africa, they still remain relevant.
Sal jy en ek wil jou dieselfde vraag vra en net vir regverdigheid gaan ons die gesprek of die debat in Engels doen. So waarom dink jy stem Suid-Afrikaners vir Action SA?
Hi Lorenza, ja, baie dankie. To answer that question, I think folks voted for Action SA, especially in the north of the country where they contested the last local government elections, in the hope that Action SA would help to bring the ANC below 50%, keep it below 50% in some places, and then form a stable alternative. So I think that was the selling point, and it's very important that the mandate, and I don't want to talk on behalf of Action SA, but the mandate that they received at the last election was to set up these governments, to form an alternative, to help build a post-ANC future. And that is also the basis of our coalition agreement in the metros, and to which the coalition partners must hold each other accountable.
Bongani, on the point of a possible post-ANC world, what is the Action SA official policy with regard to working with the ANC?
Well, we embarked on a process recently, which culminated in a study where there was 30,000 people who contributed, where they said don't work with the ANC, and that is our official position.
Sal jy in die DA, kan jy hulle vanaand amptelik sê dat die DA geen planne het om te werk met die ANC en enige kapasiteit nie?
We are committed to the success of these coalition governments. We signed an agreement. The parties to those agreements don't include the ANC or the EFF. We will not work with the ANC or the EFF in the Gauteng metros, and we will fight any onslaught by those parties. And you can clearly see the onslaught. The attacks are coming thick and fast in Joburg, in Tshwane, and Ekurhuleni. Unfortunately, where Action SA recently withdrew from the coalition, despite Mayor Tanya Campbell being re-elected to that position. So no, we are committed to these coalitions in Gauteng, and we will fight to make a difference. It is a hell of a fight, and there is major opposition. But the parties that committed themselves to that agreement should stick to the agreement instead of walking away, unfortunately, as Action SA has done.
I would just like a straight answer. Working with the ANC, yes or no?
No.
Okay. This is what we are saying now in studio. Let's hear what people on the street are saying about the DA and Action SA.
Die DA, hulle gaan 'n groot verskil maak. So hulle het al reeds 'n verskil gemaak.
Kyk nou, hulle beklei daar. Vir wat beklei hulle? Hoekom kan hulle nie net bymekaar kom en kyk wat is die beste vir ons as 'n gemeenskap?
People should stop promising things and just get the job done.
I prefer Action SA. How? Because of it's been competitive with the DA. Then the next thing, the DA they're promising, but when we vote for them, what they do?
There is no way South Africa can be fixed with the politicians we got.
Previously, we've elected people and they've disappointed us. It will depend on the government on its own, whether it elects the DA or the SA, Action SA.
We need to have a better political party that needs to be on our side.
Action SA like is gonna run in PSA because like the DA like has been run by like white people, so I can't really trust them.
And there's no way that any political party will ever fix the problem. We need a governing government, not a political party.
So, you know, when there's transparency and honesty, in good faith, That's the thing that will solve the problem. If we're acting in good faith and taking the people's interests at heart.
Die DA sal 'n beter werk doen. Want die DA is die enigste party wat beklei teen die ANC.
I trust Action SA.
At least the DA and Action SA, if they're working together, maybe the country is very good.
Bongani, so Action SA recently announced that you were pulling out of the multi-party coalition in Ekurhuleni. There wasn't any real chance of working together, but still perhaps voting with the DA to keep the ANC out. Why did you pull out of that coalition?
Well, firstly, as a matter of fact, we voted for the DA mayor. And upon crossing that first mark, our caucus made the following points to us. One, the experience of running the coalition was problematic because on numerous cases, the mayor tried to do illegal things insofar as, one, changing the macro structure of the institution by a simple memo from her to the municipal manager without following a council process. Number two, our efforts to ensure that there's sustainable insourcing of workers included in our coalition agreements were frustrated. Issues around the service delivery, especially in township, was not fast-tracked. Instead, it has been frustrated significantly. Where you find now in Ekurhuleni, some communities have gone to about 8 weeks where there hasn't been any refuse collection. What that has meant is that the coalition, within the coalition government, the portfolio that we led, which is public safety, was the one burdened by a number of protests as a consequence of the city's inability to perform. So continuously, we're finding that we actually need to start using force and responding to these difficulties, more so because part of our coalition members in these coalitions refused to go out on site to deal with these things. So the decision we had here is ANC or keeping the ANC out, and we kept the ANC out, and now we're out of that government, and we've said to the DA, our votes are available, issue by issue basis, but on the simple issue that there's a vote of no confidence, we'll be there for you. But on other matters, it has to be proven that it's service delivery get.
Sal jy jou reaksie daarop?
So this is very strange. I mean, what I've just heard is somebody who has been in the coalition for a couple of months after Ekurhuleni was governed by the ANC for 2 decades. Of course, there's a big mess to clean up, but you have to take responsibility as a coalition partner. You can't say, oh no, because things are difficult, because we have problems, we withdraw. As for confidence in Tanya Campbell, if she did illegal things, why did Action SA support her in the motion of confidence? Why did they vote for her as mayor? Why did they return her? It just doesn't make sense, and I don't believe it. I think Action SA wants to position themselves as a party that benefits from the setbacks that coalitions suffer, and that is a serious, serious undermining of what I believe and what we believe their mandate to be, and the agreement that we reached setting up these coalition governments.
Bongani, you've also accused the DA of being arrogant. Why did you say that?
Oh, absolutely. There's no two ways about that. So our experience in this coalition has informed us that the DA's approach is that they're the big party in this coalition.
But they are the bigger party. Shouldn't they have the biggest say?
With 22%. And naturally, in any coalition, wherever, you also entrench power sharing. Because you did not win 51%, it means that in the speaker, the executive mayor and the chief whip must have different parties to entrench participation and creating a separation.
But shouldn't the biggest party have the biggest say?
It's a coalition. The biggest party should have won an election. They did not win an election. That means that the biggest party needs other parties to coalesce around and have a common understanding of the program of government. Not the biggest party determining things that they should not be determining. Those things should be resolved around the table in a pragmatic manner. And we believe that they have not done so to ensure that the coalition is a better position. When we raised the issue of having the IFP take the speaker position, everybody in the coalition except the DA agreed. And as Action SA, we accepted that because there's no consensus, not majority vote, there's no consensus. We accepted the DA's response in saying, going to advance this candidate of ours, and we lost the argument when we left it there. And we went in council, voted for them, and lost together there. But in hindsight, I think they would have made a better decision because we missed an opportunity to entrench participation of other parties to ensure that there's sufficient power sharing. Coalition is also about power sharing. You can't have one party taking the speaker, the mayor, and the chief whip of council position. It's not healthy for a democracy. It does not promote stability.
Sou dit nie beter wees vir die DA om julle koalisievennote tegemoet te kom en meer posisies aan hulle beskikbaar te stel nie?
The coalition agreements that are in place in those 3 metros were negotiated over many weeks in December. There was an amendment of the coalition agreement, and the coalition agreement represents the power sharing The fact that you've signed it means that you don't have to argue who's the biggest party, who should have this job, who should have the other job. And just referring to the situation in Joburg, the IFP has now said they didn't want the speaker position. It was Action SA and the Patriotic Alliance that approached them and said, demand this position. And then that opened the door for the Patriotic Alliance to demand other positions. So it wasn't just the IFP speaker, it was other jobs that the Patriotic Alliance wanted. And that created a chaotic condition that led to serious setbacks in the coalition. So, you know, we have been accused of arrogance before, mainly by the ANC. When Athol Trollip was removed as mayor of Nelson Mandela Bay in 2018, the main accusation against him, including by his own coalition partners, the UDM, was that he was arrogant. Now, looking back, we know that that was, quite frankly, a cover story for the coalition of corruption to take over in the Bay. The same thing happened with the PA's alliance with the ANC in Joburg, and unfortunately, Action SA contributed to that by giving credence to this claim of the Patriotic Alliance, that it was so-called arrogance that made the PA make a deal with the ANC.
Bongani, what would your message be to South Africans listening to this and seeing what's been happening in the metros? It looks to them as though you're fighting about positions, and it's not really about service delivery.
Well, we're fighting about the improvement of service delivery, and that's contained in the coalition agreement. In the coalition agreement also presents an opportunity to amend the coalition agreement, which in this case has been amended a number of times to include the PA brought by the DA. Number two, to ensure that the speaker in Tshwane moves from being a DA speaker to being a COPE speaker. So what we're supposed to do in Johannesburg has been done. There's a precedence before.
But what does this mean to the person with real service delivery
Let me explain it. When you're in a coalition party, you need stability. In the coalition, you need to entrench the other participation of multiple partners to create stability. When there's stability, other parties are unlikely to move from one party to the next, but others have shown that they can do whatever they want. But the conditions for a 5-year coalition means you must have a careful power sharing, and which can easily be amended, as they have amended it before in the coalition, to entrench stability. When there's stability, there's delivery of services in a predictable operating environment. That is very important. You can't divorce the two things in our view. And saying when we've got a view that differs to the DA, we can be misconstrued as people who actually are undermining the coalition is not true. So this actually reveals the DA's intention about dissent, about difference of views in a coalition, where they believe when there's a difference of views, it actually implies we're undermining the coalition and setting them up for failure. So that actually exposes a deeply held thought about the DA and the DA's perception about other parties and the importance of their views in a coalition, which is quite telling, and I'm glad that South Africans can see. I would say that these coalitions are in a healthy state. For us,
in a healthy state.
Let me qualify my point. It's healthy because there's also issues of conflict which needs to be resolved. There's no environment where there's a sudden change, where there's no conflict, which requires changing of approach and building in the mechanisms. I can tell you now that Tshwane Caucus has found a mechanism to resolve conflict in their new standing orders, in the coalition joint rules that they shared with us. And I'm quite impressed because they've learned from the conflict. Now, building to 2024, we are moving with this experience of conflict, how to manage conflict, get to seamlessness, and get to an outcome. So I've actually learned in this space, and I really think that we are investing now. It's better we go through this turbulence now than in 2024.
Sal jy dan net baie kortliks jou boodskap aan Suid-Afrikaners wat voel koalisies is te onstabiel, ons gaan nie julle daai kans gee in 2024 nie?
We are committed to the success of these coalition governments. What is being modelled in Joburg, Pretoria and Ekurhuleni is what could be the South African reality. We could have a multi-party coalition government in the country in 2024. And we're doing everything in our power to make a success of these coalitions. But it's also very important to hold the parties to that coalition, die mense wat die ooreenkomste geteken het, om hulle verantwoordbaar te hou vir wat hulle gesê het hulle sal doen.
Bongani, thank you so much. Bly ingeskakel.